Hi guys, it's Erin from TBS, and I am back to bring you some more amazing tips and tricks to deal with your HELM Connect software so that you can make the most out of your HELM Connect software. And today we're going to be discussing your component tree. And what we're going to be showing you is how to add different parts to your component tree or take them away, and then also adding detailed information about each part into that component tree as well. So looking up your make, model, part, and serial number, and then also customizing those fields so that you can have your most detailed component tree available to you and your crews at all times. All right, guys, so we are going to start off this tutorial by logging in to our environment. And in order to edit our component tree, we're going to head over to Management and Assets. And I'm going to work underneath the Angus. Once we open up that vessel, we're going to head on over to Components. And we do have a little bit of information built in here. When you look in your HELM environment, you will have a much larger component tree already built out into your system. But we're going to play off the smaller one just to show you how to add and edit the component tree as you need to. So as you can see, the engines component has already been built into the system. If we want to see what's underneath the engines, any of the children that are listed under the engines, we just hit this little blue arrow that says Expand Children. When we do that, we see we have our port main engine that's listed underneath the engine, and then we have the starter for that port main engine that's listed underneath that as well. So we're going to show you how to add and then edit and move around these components a little bit. Starting by adding a component, we're just going to hit this blue button right up top. This started a whole new line item when we hit Add Component from the top area. There's another way that you can add a component if you want to keep that new component underneath your port main engine, because that's what we were kind of working under. If we want to keep it under the port main engine, all we need to do is just hit New Item next to the starter to keep it in line underneath this component. So we can add in filters, and that way it's staying underneath that port main engine. Now we can also add in steering systems. Do not know if I have that built in here. I do not have it in here yet, so I'm just going to we'll just select general as of right now. So that's two ways that you can add components to the tree. Now we can also move these line items to be different levels. So let's just say we wanted to take the port main engine out of being underneath the engines. We wanted to make that its own line item, its own category. All we need to do is hit this little left arrow right here. That's going to push the port main engine and anything underneath it to being its own component category. If I want to move it back to being underneath the engines, I just hit this little right arrow. That moved all of it in line with the engines, and now I need to push over my starter and my filters to be back underneath the port main. So that's just a few different ways that you can edit your component tree and move your components around just by using your left and right arrows and the little plus sign next to the components, as well as the Add Component button up here. And I'm going to go ahead and save the progress that we've made so far on this component tree. And we're going to move on to talk about the next three buttons that are listed next to each component. So the first one is the exclamation point, and if you hover over it, it says Critical System. So we know that our port main engine is a piece of critical equipment. So we're going to highlight that one, and when we do, it turns red. So now going forward, when we go through our component tree, we know which pieces of equipment are critical. The next icon is the little I, and this is the component information icon. So what we can do is click our little I button. I have some information already built into this port main engine, but we will look at how to enter it in. So if we want to hit the X button right here, that clears out that information. When we click on it, we can either select the Cummins, or we can type in our own new make for this engine. So if I type in John Deere and hit enter, This will now save John Deere and Cummins as two selections that we can choose from for our engines. We can then enter a model number. We don't have anything saved under the John Deere, so I'm just going to type in Q19 and hit enter. And now if I go back, I can always go and select that option if need be in any of our other engines. You can enter a part and serial number. I'll just do this. And it also lets you know the activation date of this component. And I put it in yesterday at 1:56, so that's when this engine was entered into the component tree. And once we have all that information filled out, we're just going to hit modify. Now if I go back to my port main engine and hit my I button one more time, you can now see that all that information has been saved in there. And now our crew members and our shoreside staff have the ability to look at this information and get a quick glance of what the important information for that component is. So I'm going to hit cancel just to get out of that box. And I'm going to go over to the last icon that's next to our components, which is the More Actions button. There's a couple different options on here. So if we want to get rid of the port main engine, maybe you have too many components in here that aren't related to this vessel or whatnot, you can edit the component tree based upon your vessel's components and parts. If we don't have a port main engine on the Angus, all we need to do is just hit deactivate, and it's going to get rid of that component for us. Okay, now if we want to copy the steering systems and we want to put it maybe somewhere down below in a different part of our component tree, all we need to do is hit copy, and we're going to click those little buttons again, and we're going to hit paste. This duplicated that component line and just pasted it below for us. And now we can go through and change it if we want to. Let's put in generators. And now we can have this new information saved into our component tree. Okay, and all we're going to do is just hit Save Changes. And now we have our changes saved. And those are just a few ways that you can go in and edit the system and add the information in that you need to for your components, for quick access for your crew members and your shoreside staff. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about when it deals with component trees is the fact that with this information box, we can actually go in and make customized boxes for this component. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to do that just in case you were interested in adding more information to your components. You can totally do that. So I'm going to hit cancel, and I'm going to go over to setup. And then we are going to go to, I believe it's parts. And we have a couple of tabs up here that deal with components and component fields configurations, component custom fields, and component types. So with our component custom fields, all we need to do is hit new custom field. And I'm going to type in HP. We want to see what the horsepower is. And we're going to keep that as a text box. It will show you right here what the preview is going to look like. You can type it in to see what it's going to look like when it generates on that component information box. You don't have to leave anything in there. It's just a preview of what it will look like. And we'll hit Save Changes. All right, so this component type is now going to be available for us to, this component custom field will now be available for us to use with our port main engine. Once we've added in that new custom field for our component information box, we're going to hit this drop down that says More and go to Component Fields Configurations. Now we have our new custom field that we've built in, and we have to select the component types that we want this custom field to show up in. So we really just want our HP field to show up in our engine. in our engine component types. And you can select multiple ones. If you want to put generators or whatever it may be, you can add different components for the HP customized box to show up in. So I'm gonna leave it with generators, or with engines, I'm sorry, and hit Save Changes. So we'll go back to our component tree to show you what this would look like now. So we'll go back up to Management and Assets, and we'll go back to our Angus. And now, when we are in our engine, we're going to hit the component information box. And you can see all the way at the bottom that our custom fields, the HP custom field, is located within our engine. And then I'll show you the difference that our steering systems, since we did not put that in as a custom component, it's not in our modified component box. So it is only showing up in our engines, which is where we designated that custom component configuration to show up in. Okay? And if you have any questions on this, just let us know. This is a really easy way for your crew members to be able to see important parts information, machinery information. One more quick thing we wanted to discuss is the way that your crew can see us. Your crew does not have access to edit the component tree, but they do have access to view the component tree. So what they're going to do is they're going to go to Onboard and Overview. And at the top of the Overview module, there is a couple different tabs. Which one you want to select is your Components tab. And I'm going to select the Angus, since that's the one we were just working on. Now they can go ahead and view the information, but they cannot edit it. They cannot click on this and change any of the detailed information. The component tree under Management and Assets can only be changed by crew members and shoreside personnel that have access to the shoreside modules. So anyone who has access to the shoreside management module. You cannot change it from Onboard and Overview. Okay? All right, guys, well, you have a great day. Thanks for watching.